Cyprus, the island of love, where the sun shines all year long, where the beaches have crystal clear waters and life seems sweet and simple, a place where... well, things might be more complicated than they seem. But if you're a newcomer, fear not, for Cyprus for Beginners is here to help you with information and shed a light on those days that might not seem so sunny and bright after all. On this series, you'll find tips and advice on starting from scratch and keeping a healthy state of mind. Hello and welcome to another episode of Cyprus for Beginners. So you're looking for a job and you don't know where to start from? Don't worry. We've got you covered. But before we start, it's important to know that depending on your visa, you might face some work restrictions. Be aware that if you're an asylum seeker, you can only enter the labor market 1 month after sending your asylum application, and you can only work in some selected fields. On this video, made by the UNHCR Cyprus, you will find all the relevant information. Also, check the resources centers of Caritas for additional info. And if you're coming with a student visa but your goal is to work, well, that's definitely not a good idea. With this kind of visa, you're only allowed to work 20 hours per week and the wages are not high. By the way, we found this blog where you can learn more about the life of a third country national student in Cyprus, so check it out. So now that you're aware of these work restrictions, let's find out what's the Cypriot labor market like.
Right now, it's a very complicated issue to describe the labor market in Cyprus due to the pandemic, of course. And the labor market was hit really severely, and it's continuing to do so. And the reality of it is that we cannot see the future. We cannot predict what's going to happen.
I think what we need to remember is that Cyprus is different in the sense that Cyprus is an island nation. This is not a big European country with a vast labor market. Its labor market is mostly driven and premised upon the existing industries in the country. So, of course, that's tourism. There's some agriculture and, of course, and a booming services sector in Limassol.
Mainly in Cyprus, you will find 3 categories of organizations or hierarchies. You will find usually the owner with his or her family running the company. And then you will find some employees who are not necessarily family, but they form part of the company. So it could be 3, 5, 10, 100 employees. The second category, I would say, is the bigger firms, which are more than 150, 200 people, 1,000, 2,000 people. And there you will find the normal hierarchy. So you will find the directors, the management team, middle management, and then the other levels in the organization. Yet the third category is, again, usually smaller companies that work with a network of associates or freelancers.
And what should we do to increase our chances of getting a job?
Project Phoenix mostly works with refugees and migrants and asylum seekers. But I think the advice that we have is general for anyone moving to Cyprus, wherever you're from, whatever kind of migrant background you have. The first thing, as I mentioned earlier, was language. Strongly encourage you to learn the language. That makes a big difference. There are a number of free courses out there, especially for people from third countries, run by the University of Nicosia, run by Cadet, run by all the big organizations, University of Cyprus.
It's a combination of things can help somebody enter the labor market. And I would say right now the most important one is to be persistent. Someone should be very active. They should look into many opportunities, not just look into websites and so on, but even be proactive and send their CV to companies, make use of their network, of the people they know.
One of the most important things about trying to build a new life and find a job in Cyprus is presenting yourself. And these days, a lot of this is done on social media. So our advice would be to sign up for one of the free courses being offered by a lot of the organizations today on CV writing, on working with LinkedIn and presenting yourself on social media.
For people belonging in more vulnerable groups, they have to look out for special programs that are funded. And the other tip I would say, if for those who are unemployed, they should register with the unemployment office, because especially now, due to the pandemic, there are many funding programs that encourage employers to employ people who are on unemployment and have part of their salary funded through these funds. So if somebody registers with the unemployment office, that means they have access to these programs. And they also have access to free training.
For the migrants coming into Cyprus, I think what we need to understand is that they came in with very different backgrounds, which are not necessarily suited to the Cypriot labor market. So the first thing we've learned is that there is a lot of potential for entrepreneurship here. So one of the things we focus on with our fellows who are recognized refugees who have international protection is to train them to become entrepreneurs, because there are gaps in the market, given that Cyprus is a sort of sealed, smaller country. But the other thing we learned with the ones we train for professional skills development is that you need to be guiding them towards the existing sectors in the market where they can actually work and where they can find work.
You should also know things can be difficult, so be prepared to overcome whatever obstacles that might come your way.
Il devrait premièrement savoir que Chypre n'est pas ce qui se dit à l'extérieur. Chypre est encore un pays très fermé aux étrangers.
I think there's a lot of systemic racism within the system in Cyprus, unfortunately, and that tends to be against people of different skin colors, mostly.
Dans des entreprises, c'est difficile. Pour dire vrai, c'est difficile. C'est à quelque peu si on tombe sur des patrons qui sont gentils. Ouais. Et la couleur de peau est encore... Ils sont pas racistes, ils sont racistes avec les étrangers, mais plus précisément avec la peau noire. Oui, parce que quand vous imaginez, vous venez pour demander du boulot, les gens se retirent. Et certains patrons vont jusqu'à dire en grec, den telo mavro. Pour ceux qui ne comprennent pas, c'est comme si, quand on n'a pas compris, ça passe. Mais pour ceux qui comprennent, c'est très choquant.
I think it's important to call out this racism and question it and complain and make use of the legal system if you feel that this is something that really affects your life. Because if you don't call it out and you don't point it out, then it's never going to change.
Bon, que faire pour ceux qui y sont déjà? Pour ceux qui y sont déjà, il faut s'armer de patience, de courage, beaucoup plus de patience. Parce qu'avec la patience, on peut beaucoup faire. On peut aller loin. Sans patience, Chypre est comme partout dans le monde entier. On a de bonnes personnes et de mauvaises personnes. Faire avec ceux qui sont bons et ne pas tenir compte de ceux qui sont mauvais. Et avancer. On va y arriver.